Okay, so the second one is more of a JD Edwards. It is a JD Edwards ERP attack. It was a utility company. They were running JD Edwards. They have hundreds of users, not thousands, but they had 50 or so plus servers in place at a primary and secondary site. They were using Oracle database with DataGuard to replicate data from a primary to a secondary. One thing I will say about traditional DR, go back 10 years and you think of DR. DR was primarily designed to protect you against architecture failure, hardware failure, network failure, communications failure. But traditional DR is not real good at protecting against ransomware, where you have threat actors that fully understand how your hypervisors work, your operating systems work, the DR tools. They understand that most people use Commvault or Veeam or some variation of doing backups, and they know to look for that. Architecture failures, aren't out to get you. Ransomware is. So they used a combination of Windows, Linux servers, and an Oracle Data Appliance (ODA). They had a lot of backups in place, both at the file level and at the database level, and they did have their endpoint protection. So what happened? Well, DarkSide ransomware group again, the same one that hit the Continental pipeline right around the same time. And where this company was weak was in their VPN. It was unsecured, and all it required was credentials. It did not have multi-factor authentication, and they got in that way. So it's one of the low-hanging fruit. If you don't have secured VPN, it's one of the first things you should look into. Attackers were in the system for months. They were not looking at outbound logs. And the hackers received, figured out how to, elevate their access. Even the backups in Commvault in this particular case were penetrated, so they were in for a while, and they corrupted the backups as well. They were using VMware, and they were able to shut off VMware and get the VMDK files encrypted. There was no known data exfiltration. This happened right around the time that just started becoming popular. They were more just looking for ransomware at this point in time, and data exfiltration was not at the top of their mind. So what happened? No ransom was paid. The system was not restorable at the VM level at all. They pretty much got almost all of the backups for this place, the VM backups, the operating system. Basically, their golden images of their runtime servers were not available. However, on one of the appliance devices that the hacker did not know that much about was a single undamaged database full backup. It was not encrypted, so we knew we had that. And basically, in this particular ERP system, if you have a more modern implementation of the JD Edwards, most of the metadata is stored in the database, and it was the case here. And we were able to rebuild the system from just the database file. All the supporting machines could be rebuilt. There were a few things that weren't readily available, like the software update in JD Edwards speak, ESUs and ASUs. That wasn't available as to what had been applied. But the next update that they took kind of rectified that. It was a minor issue. They were down for about 3 weeks, and of course, the FBI was involved here. Back then, you didn't get as much help as you get today. The FBI is a little more interested now. You can get a hold of CISA.gov or EC3. There's a bunch of places you can contact, but GSI tends to just work with the FBI Central, just because we have before we know how to get a hold of them. Couple of lessons learned here: multi-factor authentication, password change frequency, and password complexity, all critical. Immutable backups is absolutely necessary, and in all cases, immutable is not necessarily good enough. It needs to be immutable with lock if it's sitting in a cloud, um, or even in your own data center. You need to make sure, even if they get the um, tenancy. Let's say you're in Microsoft Azure and they get the tenancy admin's ID through a phishing hack. With immutable backups with lock, even that they can't change. They can't delete the backups. So that means even you, if you are the administrator, you can't. You have to define your strategy ahead of time, how files are going to get copied to it, and using a policy that you have a couple of weeks to develop. Those backups will only disappear under the policy that you previously defined before any kind of perpetrator got in. Very necessary. Back, 20 years ago, we had worm drives, write once, read many, which you could never write over the top. You don't see many of that. Tape backups are becoming a thing of the past. But those are also good thinking if you have such a device. Although, if somebody gets in and they've got plenty of time, they may wait it out, might corrupt your backups, and so that you're backing up all the wrong things. But it's a good thing if you test them and you know that your tape backups are good. Also, thing to keep in mind, in the next one, I'm going to skip the last one here because the next example will explain it. You need all the protections in the world of your servers with their operating systems, putting CrowdStrike on it, can be meaningless if you don't protect your VM layer, virtual machine layer. But I'll go more into that in the next one. Couple of tools they did use outside vCISO to help them prepare, find the right tools, getting CrowdStrike involved to try to help them test every machine. Oh, I'm sorry, not CrowdStrike. They used Carbon Black in this particular case. Great solution. A SIM, they're a big enough company. SIM probably makes sense to them, and I believe they've since engaged a contractor to implement SIM for them. Zero trust solution, like we mentioned before, Threat Locker with ring fencing, always helpful in preventing, even if somebody gets in, if they have no permission to do anything, not able to install their nefarious software, it would certainly assist.